everybody, to Inside Boxing Weekly on the Grueling Truth Radio Network. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I want to welcome in my co-host, Jeremiah Preisser. How you doing, Jeremiah?
I'm doing very, very well. Just excited for tonight's guest. Let's talk some boxing, Mike.
Most definitely. And our guest tonight, one of the best trainers in boxing, and trained Triple G in the last fight where he got screwed over. Help us welcome to the show, Abel Sanchez. How you doing, Abel?
How you doing, guys? Nice to be with you.
Hey, it's great to have you back on, especially so soon after the last fight. Now, before we get into the fight itself, how are you feeling? You exhausted from the event?
Well, I'm exhausted, but I have so many other guys in the gym that I have to act like I'm not. I have a cruiserweight fighting on the 21st of October, so I got to get him ready. So everything's another day in the office.
Yeah, we actually have a question about Gossiev in a little while, but do you typically wind down for a fight? I mean, after something big like this, and if you do, how do you do it? You read, or you just hang out with the kids, or
I play golf, but you really this fight really was not. I guess I've been in this business long enough to not let it get to me, not let it bother me mentally or physically. It's the same. This fight's just the same as 10 fights ago for me, except for a lot more media. But we still train the same way, we still prepare the same way, we still go to the fight the same way. To me, everything's the same. The difference, like I said, is just more media. But they don't get any more special than the last one.
All right, so how's Golovkin feeling? Did you guys talk about the fight on Sunday?
Absolutely. We had breakfast on Sunday, and he's feeling well. He knows that he won the fight. He's still champion. And he's like me. The fight's over with. There's nothing we can do to change any of what's happened. So now on to the next one. Now he's going to take a couple of weeks off, and as a team we'll sit down together after about 10 days and figure out what our next step is, whether we're going to fight him before the end of the year or whether we fight him next year. So right now it's a rest for him, and me, I got to continue going.
Right. And I know that, you guys probably talked a little bit about the strategy of the fight. What was the game plan going into the Alvarez fight, and how well do you think Golovkin implemented it?
I think game plan is, to me anyway, a game plan is overrated. And I'll tell you why it's overrated, because the other guys got a game plan too. And if we're able to, let's just say we had 3 game plans, and we used a little bit of this game plan, a little bit of this game plan, a little bit of that game plan, it's never exactly like you think it's going to be. For instance, Canelo has never ran as much as he ran in this fight. He's never moved as much as he moved in this fight. So whatever game plan that you had implemented for a fight, as Canelo was saying about knocking Golovkin out, you're in the center of the ring, and that goes out the window because now this guy's on his bicycle. So I think that when you talk about a game plan, what I try to do is I try to prepare my guys to the best that they can be, and we practice all aspects of what could happen, and we implement whatever's available at the time. So There's no specific game plan, let's just say.
All right, yeah. Gennady's jab, I think, dominated the fight, was the most effective punch in the fight. It landed consistently and with power. You had to be happy with that.
Oh, absolutely. He did a lot of things right. Of course, there's a lot of things that if there's a rematch, we're going to try to modify and to make better. But he did a lot of things right. I thought he won the fight. Some people have asked me about why didn't he go to the body so much. Well, the one time that he did go to the body with the right hand, Canelo turned his back and hit him in the back, and Kenny Bayless asked him not to hit him there. So sometimes you don't want to get a point taken away. You don't want to do repeated things. You don't want a guy to turn and you hit him in the wrong spot. So all those things sometimes come into play, and you don't use a weapon like you would use in other fights.
All right, funny enough, we were going to ask about the body punches themselves, because it looked like Alvarez was fading. A lot of us thought that, just a few more body punches to the stomach would probably help turn the tide even more in Golovkin's favor. Is that something you try to change in a rematch? I mean, would you just try to have them place him differently, or?
I think that when a guy's running like that, it's difficult to land those specific body punches. The way that he's turning away from a left hand to the body. He's trying to do a shoulder roll like Floyd Mayweather does. He's running that way, so he's turning away from the liver shot, let's just say. So in order to throw that shot, you're going to have to be reaching a lot. So those punches really weren't available. He may have done them in the past, but nobody's ever moved as much as Canelo did. Then he threw the right hand to the body, and Canelo turned his back as he's moving that way. He's turning that way. And like I said, that's when Kenny got mad or said something to him. So there's moments when you can, there's moments when you can't. Canelo wasn't presenting himself for that shot, so the jab was the most important punch.
Yeah, and you've talked before, we get to the scorecards now. I think the last time we had you on, we talked about the fights in Toledo, the way the fights were scored. Did you have any feeling coming in that something like that could be brewing in this fight?
Well,
did Adelaide Byrd being one of the scorers in the fight, did that cause any concern?
I voiced my concern when they told me who the choices of judges were. But we don't get to choose exactly who we want. We get to say who is out. They give us so many, and we exclude so many, and they get to exclude so many, and you get a pool of 4, I think it is. And of those 4, the commission picks the ones that they want. Well, Adelaide Byrd had scored several Canelo fights crazy like that for Canelo. There's nothing that we can do about that. We just hope that the other 2 judges are on the up and up. But unfortunately for this lady, I don't know what fight she was watching, but she can watch the fight on Saturday because she missed the one on this Saturday. She can watch the replay.
Yeah, she can catch the rerun. Do you have any issue with Don Trella's card? And I ask that because, I mean, a draw was more reasonable than what we got from Adelaide Byrd, but when you look at his scorecard, I mean, he scored the 7th for Canelo, and just about everybody had Golovkin winning that round.
I know. I don't know what these guys see sometimes. I said it at the press conference. I don't know if they go to the same school for judging. I know that everybody has their favorite type of punch and type of fighter, but when a guy wins a round, he should win a round regardless whether you like his style or not. I was bothered by Trella's. I thought that Moretti had I thought they were up 8-4, but Moretti at least had Golovkin winning 7-5. But Trella surprised me. I really did, because I thought he was more, non-biased or neutral.
Well,
and you talked about that. I had the fight 8-4. I think Jeremiah had it 7-5. I've watched the fight 3 or 4 times, and I can't see how anybody could give. And this was a stretch to me, was just to give him even that 5th round. I mean, right. To me, we've talked about it on here before with other fights like Broner and Granados, which that was a controversial decision. It could have went either way. This, to me, was more like a Whitaker-Chavez. To me, this was a straight-out robbery.
Yeah. Well, the silver lining in all this is that we're still talking about it. The silver lining, he's still champion. He still has the belts. And Canelo didn't lose but didn't win. So we're still talking about it, and that always is a plus, because any kind of ink is good ink, whether it's bad or good. So hopefully the rematch will have more people talking about it and more people wanting to watch it.
Right, yeah, no, we certainly agree with that, and we're all looking forward to it. I mean, there hasn't been much in the press. I mean, there's been something in the press about the rematch lately, but, no concrete details have been put out. But I'm just wondering, what can we do to ensure this type of stuff stops happening? Because I understand how potentially you could get a draw, though the vast majority of people ringside, the people at press row, I polled 32 people. I typically go on social media afterwards, on Facebook, on Twitter, and I check the scorecards of the people that I respect the most, guys like Douglas Fisher from the ring and guys over at Boxing Scene, et cetera, et cetera. I took 32, scorecards and looked at them, and 4 had it a draw, 1 had it for Alvarez, and the rest had it for Golovkin. So what's confusing for me is how most of us who are not paid representatives, it's not our job to score these cards, how we can have it something like this. How most of us could score 7-5 Golovkin, 8-4 Golovkin. But again, the people who are being paid to do it are not getting it right. What can we do to ensure that this kind of stuff stops happening?
I think in Nevada, which is where most of these decisions have been questionable, I think in Nevada what happens is that the commission gets to choose out of their pool. They get to choose judges that are out of their pool. They don't get to choose the Weisfelds, the Lettermans, the judges that are never in an inconsistent fight. So because they get to choose their own judges here, the judges have no fear of never being chosen again. So their interest is satisfied by doing what they do, because they're still going to be judging. Miss Bird is not going to be suspended. Miss Bird is not going to be reprimanded. She saw the fight like she saw it, and Mr. Bennett said that. So I think that how you can eliminate that is to be allowed in these kind of fights that mean the sport of boxing, the face of boxing, or mean that much to boxing. I think that neutral judges need to be brought in from several or from different parts of the world, judges that have no consistency of getting things wrong. So if you bring in, like I said, the Weisfelds or the Lettermans, or there's other judges in other states that are consistent with what other people see, what the majority see, I think that we would tend to eliminate some of those discrepancies and some of those arguable cards that give us a bad name. I mean, there's a reason why other sports like MMA and UFC are shadowing us and even taking some of our fan base, because we appear to be crooked.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I'm going to ask because, I mean, this is something, I actually wrote an article about this. I wrote an article about this the other day about how Canelo Alvarez has had a number of cards that have been just odd. I mean, going back for years now, I mean, the Stanley Christodoulou fight and the Austin Trout fight where he had a 10-2 for Alvarez. You had C.J. Ross, who scored at a draw against Mayweather. You had Levi Martinez, who had 117, 111 for Alvarez. I mean, what you're talking about is, the whole crooked and corruption part. But do you think there is some, political stuff to that? I mean, that's the perception that most people get.
Well, how you would eliminate that political part of it is bring in judges from other parts of the world. Don't have the judges here that depend on Nevada to appoint them, because Nevada's appointing their own judges. They don't allow anybody, even the referees. Everything has to be in-house. So
and that's the one thing I don't understand, because you'll see, like the Joshua Klitschko fight, you see guys from all over the place. I think New York's like that too. So my question is, because I did not know this till now then. So Vegas, if the fight's in Vegas, you're basically getting Vegas judges no matter what.
You've been Nevada judges. The state of Nevada, yeah, and referee.
And do you think there's a chance that, Mr. Bennett actually sat down and watched the fight with Adelaide Bird and had her describe every round and why she scored it the way she did?
I'm sure that they're going to question her, but it's a subjective scoring. So her subjective scoring obviously is not in line with 99.999% of the world.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, even the three people that thought Canelo won the fight, I mean, even they thought 118, even they thought it was stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, if she'd have had it 115, 113, the other Canelo, if she'd have had it then I don't think we'd be talking about this.
No, because you got three people watching from different angles, and everybody can see something a little bit different. It's when you get 118 to 110, when everybody else has got it 115 to 113, that raises eyebrows.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, yeah, the funny thing too is that the people I know who scored it for Alvarez, two of them were watching the fight in the same house, so I don't really put a whole lot of weight into that. And one picked Alvarez to win beforehand anyways, but, aside from the controversy, like you said, you've got Gassiev fighting soon against, I'm not even sure if I can say his name right, Krzysztof Wlodarczyk.
Wlodarczyk,
Okay, yeah, that's part of the World Boxing Super Series tournament, which has been excellent so far. He looks ready to go already.
You know what? They've got the 8 best cruiserweights in the world. They got the 4 champions. Unfortunately, Lebedev is not part of this because of Kudryashov, because they're on the same team. But you got the best 4 champions against the best 4 available contenders, which are actually the best 4 that are not champions. So I think in a single elimination tournament like this, anything can happen. Anything can happen, and it's the 8 best guys. I think it's great for the cruiserweight division. I think that the guy wins it. The guy that wins it is going to get a title shot like Evander Holyfield did when he was the unified champion. He got a title shot against the heavyweight, Riddick Bowe. So I think that this is good for boxing, good for the cruiserweight division, and good for my man Gassiev.
So is Gassiev's plans to move up to heavyweight?
Oh, he's 23 years old. He's grown. When I first got him, he was weighing 191, 92 pounds. He was only 6'1". He's up to 6'3" now. He's weighing, when he comes into camp, 220. So I'm working him down to 200 for the cruiserweight tournament. So yes, he is growing. He's 23 years. He's not 24 yet. He won't be 24 until October the 12th. So he is a growing boy, and hopefully in a couple of years he'll grow into a good 235, 240 heavyweight that's about 6'4", 6'5".
Did you happen to catch any of the other? Well, they only had one fight. Did you happen to catch the Usyk fight? What do you think
Usyk
of him?
fight.
And
yes.
Right. Yeah, he's the odds-on favorite. What do you think of him and Gassiev's chances?
I think that Usyk is a very good boxer. He's a gold medalist. Obviously, he's a very good fighter. I don't think he's strong enough or punches hard enough to keep Gassiev off of him. It's going to be a difficult fight for both guys. But I think that they're both odds-on favorites to be in the finals. But then again, anything can happen. You remember what happened with Andre Ward. I mean, Andre Ward wasn't supposed to be in the finals. It was supposed to be Abraham and Kessler. So, but if they do get to the finals, I think it's a great fight. I think both guys will come out stars out of that fight because I think it'll be that type of fight like we had the other night with Estrada and Cuadras. I think it's going to be that kind of fight because Gassiev is going to force it. He's going to force Usyk to fight. And if that's the case, then I think we're going to be treated to a great fight, and the winner will go on to fight a heavyweight.
All right, so we're only going to keep you a few more minutes. I know you're busy, but we're going to ask you a couple thoughts on some other ones. Deontay Wilder was just announced to fight Luis Ortiz. What kind of shot do you give Ortiz of upsetting Wilder?
I think Ortiz has probably got better skills, but I think Deontay's right hand will put just about anybody to sleep if he lands it, and he's going to land it against Ortiz. So if Ortiz can box him and can stay focused for the 12 rounds, he may have a chance. But if he goes he's unfocused 1 second like he was against Malik Scott, I think Deontay will put him to sleep.
All right, Jeremiah.
Right. Well, sorry. I did want to ask real quick about Lomachenko versus Guillermo Vidigal. I mean, that's a fight that a lot of us were wanting to see too. A lot of us were hoping it would happen down at 126 when there wasn't, such a big weight discrepancy between them. The guys have each won 2 gold medals. How do you see that one playing out?
I see Lomachenko being too big for Rigondeaux. I see Lomachenko. It's going to be a boxing match. It's going to be a chess match between the two guys. But I see Lomachenko's size and strength at that weight that he's at now being too much for Rigondeaux. Rigondeaux's a 22-pounder, 22-pounder. He's even small for a 26-pounder. But like I said, I think Lomachenko is the class right now at 130 and 135.
So what's your take on Lomachenko as a fighter?
I think he's probably one of the best fighters in the world. He hasn't fought that many fights as a pro, but technically he's got the best legs, he's got the best angles, he's got the sharpest mind, I think, in boxing right now. He's exceptional to me.
Well, I just bring that up because Ruben Castillo was on a call with me and Jeremiah, told him how much he thought of Lomachenko, and Ruben told him, well, Jeremiah don't know shit about boxing then because he said Lomachenko's not that good.
Well, we all got opinions. I think that Lomachenko being an amateur and losing one fight out of 460, whatever the hell he was, and then as a pro, the only one that really schooled him because he was very young was Salido, but Salido was an old veteran, and this kid coming in the second fight, Salido used all the dirty tactics he could use, and he beat him. But I think he's grown into a very, very good professional. I think that there's very few fighters out there in those two divisions that are going to touch him. I said in an interview before that I thought he would school Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia is a great fighter, but I think Lomachenko's head and shoulders above him.
You don't think Mikey might be a little too big for him?
No, they were both featherweights. How can he be too big for him? They were both featherweights.
But Garcia just looks bigger now.
No, Lomachenko to confuse him.
All right, I just brought that up because, Ruben gave Jeremiah a lot of crap about it. So
Ruben.
I'll make sure Ruben listens to this.
Yeah, well, Ruben was a very good fighter. He's very good he's a knowledgeable about boxing. But I think sometimes we're clouded by things that we've done in the past and clouded by how can I put it, by nationalities, I guess is the best way to put it. But you have to look at it.
Or sometimes some people just don't like certain people. Yeah,
and you have to be objective and not because he doesn't fight like you like the fighters to fight. He's not a good fighter. He's an exceptional fighter. He's an exceptional fighter who's proven that against some top quality opposition, and I think he's going to go a long way. I see him as people not fighting him. I see people avoiding him at both weights, but there's going to come a point where you can't avoid him, and you're going to have to fight him, and he's going to prove that he is the fighter that I'm saying.
All right, Jeremiah, any final questions?
Yeah. Well, I was going to add that I just think there becomes a point where Lomachenko just becomes too dominant of a figure, and he sells too well. Because say what you want about Bob Arum in his past, I mean, he knows to bring guys along, and I would say that there aren't many guys you would ever find, throughout the history of boxing who have a better resume through 10 professional fights than Vasyl Lomachenko. I did have one more question though, because Sergey Kovalev recently parted ways with John David Jackson, and he said that he's going to train himself for the Shabransky fight. Have you ever heard of a professional doing that? What do you think of that?
I had Sergey for about a year and a half. I had him for 8 fights, 8 knockouts. I got him rated in the top 10 when he was with me. I didn't get him rated. His actions and his fights got him rated, but that was when he was with me. It's unfortunate that he doesn't allow, or he didn't allow, a coach like John David Jackson, who, after winning a title himself 3 times, I think knows a little bit about boxing. I think he's a very knowledgeable person about boxing, and you can't take from a coach if you don't allow him to teach you. What he knows about boxing, he's probably forgotten more about boxing than Kovalev knows to this point. For Kovalev to train himself is ridiculous. It's like being your own lawyer or being your own brain surgeon. But he's the kind of guy that you're not gonna tell him what to do. And if that's the case, then he's better off doing it on his own and losing on his own, so that way he doesn't have nobody to blame.
Yeah, well said. Abel, it was great to have you on the show. We'd love to have you back again sometime. I
would love to be back on. Thank you for having me.
Hey, most definitely. Maybe we'll get you after, your guy wins the cruiserweight fight coming up. Gassiev, right?
Gassiev. And Jeremiah, I promise to get on Castillo for getting on you for being so knowledgeable about boxing and him not.
I'll tell you this. I'm going to call Ruben right after this and play the recording for him.
Yeah, you play it for him. Tell him to call me.
Because that means he has to think the same thing about you, right?
Yeah, but let me listen to this. He's probably a better golfer than he is an analyst.
Well, he told me he was a great golfer.
And he's a terrible golfer.
Is he? Because he's always telling me how he's beating everybody.
No, he's actually one of those guys you call a ringer. You bring him on as a team member, and he's a ringer because he's very good. Yeah.
Well, I know. Lafitte Pinkai told me that too. So
yeah,
I believe Ruben can play golf. So
yeah, but he's not an analyst. He doesn't know his. He's too biased. But anyway, you play it for him, and you tell him to call me.
All right. Thanks a lot, Abel.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Thank you, Mike. All right. Bye-bye.
All right, Jeremiah, any closing comments?
Any closing comments? Well, it's always exciting to have a guy like Abel on, especially after, so few days after the fight itself. He's an insightful fella, nice, just good to talk to, and I hope we can bring him on again.
Most definitely. I mean, he's a great guy, great trainer. Golovkin won the fight. I don't care what anybody says. But I want to remind everybody you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker. Make sure you go to the iTunes store, get the Grueling Truth app. So that's about it for today. Tomorrow we will actually have John Einreinhofer back, I guess. We're going to do a boxing show tomorrow to preview the fights coming up and talk a little bit about this fight.
Yeah, I think we've got to because John, I don't know. John, we just kind of got to talk to him and see how he came to the conclusion that he did. For those listening, he scored it for Alvarez. We'll get to the bottom of this.
Well, I'm not going to say that just because he wrote Canelo on a social media post, so we'll let him explain it himself. I'm sure he'll have well-thought-out reasons. John always does, even though me and John almost always disagree. I do respect John's opinion, so I definitely look forward to hearing that. So make sure you catch that tomorrow night on the Grueling Truth Radio Network. Check us out at thegruelingtruth.net. So for Abel Sanchez, Jeremiah Preisser, this is Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.